Good afternoon, and welcome to the Infinit-I Workforce Solutions Fast Forward Expert Roundtable. My name is Mark Ray, and I'll be hosting today's events that's pre-recorded today, May 25th, 2023. We are rapidly approaching Memorial Day weekend, so I want to take a quick moment to acknowledge and salute all of our veterans. Thank you for all your services. I'm a proud Army veteran myself, and I want to just extend that to everyone before we get into the topic of today, which is at the scene of an accident, what to do and what not to do. I also want to acknowledge that this weekend can be a very dangerous weekend on our highways. There's a lot of schools out. Springtime is on us. Construction zones are very active. Which obviously allows peaking for distractions and impaired drivers, and not only for our commercial vehicles, but for the driving community that's out there. So today's topic is very relevant, and I wanted to make sure everyone that is an existing client that there is content that's available that can go out this afternoon or tomorrow, what to do at the scene of an accident. If you're a prospect, there will be an offer for a free demonstration at the end of today's recording where you can sign up for a demonstration. And if you sign up for that, you can get content out to your drivers this afternoon on what to do at the scene of an accident. I've seen many accidents that were very minor, no fault accidents that turned into major verdicts because of some of the things that are done at the scene of an accident that we will cover in the presentation. Our subject matter expert today will be Mr. Keith Long. If you're joining us, please fire up your chat. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you're calling in from. Feel free to add questions, comments as we go through today. We will answer those at the end of today's program. So, all that being said, Memorial Day is here on us. Accidents will be out there. What to do at the scene of an accident is a very important component of a safety program, and we will go into the presentation now. Good afternoon and welcome to the Infinit-I webinar series. Today we have a fantastic topic and guest speaker. Our topic for the day is at the scene. Post-accident procedures, what to do and what not to do. We've got joining us Mr. Keith Long, the transportation nerd, a subject matter expert that's going to give us some insight on his experiences and how we can communicate what to do at the scene with our drivers, as well as what to do at the scene behind the scenes as administrative staff. I want to make sure that we can cover a couple of real important facts. Is the majority of the commercial truck accidents are the critical reason belongs to the car, not the truck. The unfortunate is the ability to defend and present that in a format that a defense attorney can defend the case, and it's very frustrating when it's clearly a non-preventable, but you're unable to make those determinations, and some of the things that are done immediately at the scene, post-accident procedures can certainly help with defending that lawsuit. So without anything else, Keith, thank you for joining us today.
Yep, absolutely. Glad to be here and super excited about this topic. So there's a lot here to chew on.
Fantastic. Why don't you just kick it off and tell us about what some of our audience can do and not do immediately post-accident.
Great. Well, and you really hit it on the head there, right? According to the ATA, so they did a study at the end of 2021, or concluded a study, and found that 80% of accidents involving commercial motor vehicle and cars, the cause of the accident can be attributed to the driver of the car or the passenger vehicle rather than the truck driver, right? So 80%, and that's why here, we can say that a majority of these cases are defensible, right? And if you're not defending yourself on these cases, you're wasting time and you're leaving yourself out there. But as you said, it is critical what you do in those moments after the accident, right? We're really in, and we've probably heard the term quite a bit, but we're in the age of nuclear verdicts when it comes to truck transportation, right? These are those high awarded cases, high jury awarded cases that may surpass what may be reasonable or rational for the accident itself. So, and you probably see it all the time if you're in any major city, right? You take a trip down the interstate and you see the big signs, right? I'll get you millions. My last case, I made 10 million, or you name it. They're going to promise big numbers. And for any lawyer, they're going out after these cases, and that the goal is, right, if you don't have your facts straight, if you didn't do your due diligence, after that accident, then there's opportunity there for, well, us to pull at the heartstrings of the jury, right, or turn this into a sympathy case rather than a facts, what actually happened. They play on the idea of big bad truck drivers, and that's, when we talk about this 80% statistic, that's just not it.
Yeah. And those facts post accident, they get a little more hard to focus and hard to find as the crash or as the case ages. Is that correct?
Right, absolutely. The farther we get away from it, a lot of that information is disappearing, right? There's, we talk about super important things, and we'll mention this here in a little bit, but the ECM on a truck, right? That electronic control module that tells the entire story of what's going on with that vehicle. If we're not getting that information right away, it may very well be gone when you go to look for it months down the road, or, with the way cases can go now, even years down the road, right?
Yes, and I'll just, the reality of these nuclear verdicts is real. I've certainly been involved in some, and they are alive and well. Right.
And it's one or two missing things that create that opportunity for an attorney to hold on to, right, and really, sway the jury and just a little bit, right? So we'll talk about some of those things here. So really, how do we prove what happened, and how do we prove that we were in the right? And this all starts with, one, making sure we're doing what we need to after the accident, but two, making sure you have the right person representing you when you're out there, right? We're not just going to get any lawyer. We're going to get somebody that has experience in the industry, that's been in and around it, and might as well be their specialty, right? A truck transportation lawyer. Are you using dash cams? You should be, especially in this day and age. At least an external camera, but if you're using internal cameras, those also tell the story of, if we're saying our driver was in the right, then we've got that visual that shows our driver was hands at 10 and 2, not distracted, maintaining our lane, where we needed to be, when we needed to be there, right? So at the scene, right, we want to be sure that we're any witness statements, seek out and look for any public cameras. If you don't have a dash camera or anything like that on your trucks, a lot of times you've got cameras in the area, local businesses nearby, gas stations. If your accident happened at an intersection, right, you may have intersection cameras. And a lot of times what we've seen is even passerbys might have a camera on their vehicle, right, that are willing to submit that.
There's also public cameras at intersections and at
Yep.
light poles are everywhere, aren't they?
Yep, absolutely.
Now, on the witnesses, I know I've had this happen where you had a statement and you get down the road and you begin to put the defense together, and you can't find that witness.
Right. Yep, absolutely. So it pays, one, to get that witness statement, but two, to keep up with them and keep track with them, right? right? Make sure you've got a foundation of contact with them, especially if it's a key witness, right? Somebody that was really there when it happened. It's important that you don't lose contact with them, because that may very well be the foundation of that case surviving. Get with a good accident reconstruction subject matter expert, right? Somebody that is well versed in doing this, because their goal and their job is to take all of the facts of the accident and put together a retelling of the event, right? You don't want to rely on just the accident description that we get from the police report. It pays to also have somebody look at it, third party, and reconstruct it as well, right? We also kind of get a play-by-play and an opportunity to determine what was going on at the moment that the accident happened. And again, always get that ECM data, right? Don't let that fall by the wayside. That should be one of the first things that you're doing, right? If that truck's, ending up being towed away from the scene or anything like that, need to make sure you've got somebody on the receiving end of that to get that ECM data. That should be top and first priority, aside from other things that might be going on at the scene. There's a lot of things that as a driver, we need to be paying attention to, right? There's a lot of things directly after that accident, those first critical minutes after that accident, that a driver should be paying attention to and be ready for. So at the scene of an accident, right? Let's get in the mind of a driver in the accident. What happens? We're naturally, like anybody, we're panicked, right? Your heart's racing. It's
adrenaline's flowing.
That's it, exactly. And if somebody's not telling you what to do in those moments, it's easy to forget what you're supposed to do. Or if you don't have a checklist right in front of you, it's easy to forget what you should be doing. So first and foremost, I recommend having a checklist in that truck, a laminated checklist that driver knows where to go to, whether that's pinned to the dash or attached to the visor, right? Something that driver can follow step by step every single time. And you should really have company training on it, right? Don't just rely on an accident happening to hope that they follow that standard operating procedure, right? Practice makes perfect, right? We train for all kinds of things, and this should also be one of those things that you're training for. So you can see here, in the event of an accident, right? Set the brakes, turn on the four-way flashers, and as the CDL manual says, right? Secure the area, right? And so when we're talking about securing a scene, the way that a driver does that is placing out those emergency triangles within the first 10 minutes, contacting the authorities, and making sure, right, or checking on other parties, that is, at the scene. If we're not looking at, I think in general, it's important one to note here too, that we do reach out to the authorities for any accident, right? It's important that you do so, unless it's your driver and they hit a cement block in a parking lot, right? Or they did some sort of landscaping, we'll call it that. But if any other parties are involved, it's important that we get, the police involved, or some sort of law enforcement, motor vehicle enforcement division, an official person who can be there to respond to the scene and take record of the scene.
So you recommend actually asking the other party, do you need medical attention? And if their answer is yes, you 911 them in, but check on the other party on their health and well-being.
Right. And again, this really does fall into the, I guess, best way to put it, right? We're not going to intervene, right? That's not our job. We're leaving that up to the professionals, right? But it is important to assess that scene and understand if there is anything critical. But regardless, we should be getting official help on the way.
Yes, we should show sincerity and compassion. But the other thing I think is important, we need to assume the other party has their iPhone on, is recording everything that's going on. So going to the window and using some vulgar language and making accusations probably is not a good idea.
Right, right, absolutely. Professionalism is key here, and it should always be, at the first of mind in these situations. It's important to check on other parties, but I've heard a driver in an accident say, is anybody dead? Well, that's probably not the response that we want to go to the window with. I think that's what you're talking about there, Mark, is how we assess the incident. We're not there to offer aid or anything like that. We're there to make sure that everybody is okay, and that help is on the way.
We're not going to try that case on the side of the road.
That's right. That's right. In general, we always say do not admit fault, right? And the reason being there is because we have no clue what the other factors are in that accident, right? You have no clue what else was going on. If you're rear-ended at an intersection and the light was green in front of you, we might say you're impeding traffic, but you don't know that driver behind you could have been on their cell phone. They could have been speeding. They could be inebriated. There's all kinds of factors that go into an accident, right? So best thing to do is to stick to the facts and know where you were when the accident happened, right? We should be calling into our company the moment it happens. Right after we've contacted the authorities, we should be calling our company and letting them know we've been involved in an accident, so that the company can start that proper chain, right? That proper order of operations to get what they need for the accident, and to make sure that you're doing what you need to at the scene as a driver, right? So, if anybody's injured, if anybody's cited or anything like that, as a company, there's things that we need to make sure happen so that we're covering ourselves in the event that this does have some legal ramifications. So, we talk about, let's say, post-accident drug and alcohol. That's one of those critical factors that if you didn't get that taken care of in the allotted amount of time, right? That's the type of thing that then we go to court later on, and it's a non-defense point, right? You can say, well, was your driver inebriated? Was your driver this or that? We don't know because we don't have this evidence here. So we leave the door open for suspicion, right? If you don't know the rules and regulations, right, should be understanding and knowing CSR 382-303, right, that defines when and where, or in the event of an accident, what should be happening for post-accident drug and alcohol. If people were towed away from the scene, if people were injured at the scene, and the windows in which those things need to be done.
Now, this is a pretty long list. Let me just ask you a tough question. Is it trainable for a motor carrier to be able to train their drivers on what to do at the scene?
It is
trainable in it?
Yep, absolutely it is, right? There's because it, like we said here, if I just threw this list at you and you'd been involved in an accident and you'd never looked at this except for your break the glass moment, right, then you're going to have a problem, right? You're probably not going to follow through with everything that you need to, even though it's right there on paper. We have to train to it. If in an office building, we train for things like emergencies and fires, right? We have standard operating procedures that we follow that we're required to train on. It should be the same for our drivers that we have out in the field.
Yes, and I've heard this over and over when you get to the deposition stage. Nobody told me to do any of these things, and that's a preventable. That needs to be corrected.
Right, absolutely. Pictures are a big one.
Yeah.
Right. Make sure that you document. Get pictures that support and tell the story. Pictures should have trailer numbers, tractor numbers in them. They should be far enough back that they tell us the story of the accident. We get a lot of these, and I'll show you a good one here. A lot of these that look like this.
Yeah.
And what does that tell you, right? We know that there's damage, disabling damage, but this doesn't tell us any other part of the story. And you get these all too often, right? We're not taking pictures so that we can send it to our claims adjuster and determine when I can get my car into the next shop, right? We want pictures that tell the story, because at the end of the day, you may very well have a party that has no clue what happened except for the facts that are set in front of them, the pictures and the story that's been written out. So a more appropriate view, right, looks like this, right? We can tell how close we were to the curb or any other object. We can see in the back of this picture that we're just on the other side of an intersection. We get the license plate, we get the make of the vehicle, we get what lane position the vehicle's in. There's a whole lot more to this story now. But another opportunity then would be to take a picture on the other side, right? Out and around. Most important thing to do though is make sure you're not endangering yourself, stepping out in traffic or anything like that to get these pictures. That should be a no-brainer, but absolutely needs to be said. Another good one here, good attempt, right? But there's not, we don't get a whole lot of the story here. And you can see we've got maybe a whole trailer number there in the corner, but that is one that you'll see, right? We'll get a partial of a number or something like that, right? If we don't see where it begins and where it ends, that doesn't tell the whole story.
Picture of that license plate's very important.
Correct.
And I would assume that would include any eyewitnesses if you can get a picture of their license plate.
Absolutely, right? Because that ultimately furthers your ability to reach out to them or stay in contact with them, right? So here's that regulation, right? Post-accident drug and alcohol testing. Again, extremely important, right? The CSR tells it all. So you should be familiar with what to do at a scene, what to do post-accident, and you should know what the FMCSA says that we should be doing, what rules we should be following. Because failure to do so here, it looks like we chose not to. So for the company, right, this is the receiving end of that phone call, right? Things we need to be paying attention to, right? What's the time of day? What's the driver's information? What's the driver ID? Truck number, location, other parties involved and their information, right? Are there any injuries? Have we called the authorities? Are tows needed? Has anybody been towed yet? Have officials responded to the scene yet? Did you get a police report? Because we should be. And were you cited? It's another big one there. Especially, at an accident, we can be cited and not be in the wrong. That decision can come later. But if you're cited, that's also something we can go back and data queue, right? There's an opportunity there if we're at fault for a specific reason. We talk about those CSA categories, crash, right? This is where that comes in. Post-accident.
I would assume hazardous spills would also be an important item.
Right, absolutely. If you are in hazardous transportation, that's a whole nother thing there, right? We should be looking at our guidebook and determining based upon what we have, how we need to handle the incident. And you should also be communicating with the authorities what is being hauled on that vehicle, right? And then to further that point, right, if we go back to what the driver should be doing in that case, right, that ERG, the emergency response guide, tells the driver, right, how far they may need to block off an area depending on, what chemicals or what products are on that vehicle and the type of things that they should be carrying with them in the event that happens. So that really sets off a whole secondary chain to this, that whole nother set of steps that our driver should know and should be ready to follow. And as a company, we should be practicing with them if we're in that mode of the industry. So like we've been talking about here, Mark, it really all comes down to preparation and practice, right? Ultimately, at the end of it, if this goes to trial or is going to, we need to prepare for discovery and deposition, right? We should be practicing. If you've got a good truck transportation lawyer, they're going to be putting you through deposition practice. Be prepared to block off your calendar for some time there, because that does take a while, especially if you've been through it, you understand there. But you have to be ready for it, and you should also be well and familiar with things like your company's training materials, company policy and handbook. The one key thing right here is, if I'm defending an accident that happened 3-4 years ago, the company policy and training materials at that time that were provided are what you're defending, right? It's not current place and time. So it's important to be familiar with training materials that would have been handed out at that time. It's important to understand and be knowledgeable of the company policies that were in place at that time and what materials you put out at that time. Because just as much as you're going to know it, you can guarantee that the other party, right, the other lawyer, is going to know it just as well as you do. Absolutely important to retain hours of service records, wherein the ECM tells us the entire story of the truck and what happened in an incident. The hours of service tells us the story of the driver and what happened prior to the incident, right? Sleeping habits, driving habits, right? You can look in there pre-accident. You might be determining, potential for fatigue. You might be determining, well, was this driver off for a while before they got back on the road? There's a whole lot that this hours of service tells. It also tells, right, were they doing their pre and post trips the way that they should have been? Or are they inspecting their vehicle? Is that notated? Because if a driver's not paying attention to those things, right, the argument could be made, what else aren't they paying attention to? Could this also have been a contributing factor to the accident, right?
Yeah, and a lawsuit can be filed well past the 6-month deadline for retaining hours of service. But if you're not able to provide hours of service to a judge, that's hard to explain. That is hard to explain.
Correct. And as a company, part of your critical accident review process, right? You should be doing one, is making sure that you have those records and you have them retained, right? That should be done shortly after the accident happens.
And then you've got to almost assume nearly any wreck is subject to litigation in today's plaintiff's attorney's world.
Correct. And then, when we go back to that percentage, right? 80%, right? 80% of these accidents are the fault of the operator of a passenger car and not the truck driver. Not only should you expect, these to go to trial, but you should also be ready to defend them, because more than likely with a statistic like that, you're going to have success. Maintain records. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to comment on the prepare and practice. I do know some insurance companies that now, as a condition of being a member of the insurance pool, and that they actually have simulated crashes, simulated depositions, simulated discovery to make sure that you are defendable, becoming a little bit more common all the time in the insurance world.
Right. Absolutely.
Probably a very good practice.
Right. Maintenance records, right? That's another one that we really want to retain and pay attention to. If our vehicle was involved in an accident where, we don't even have to say that where the brakes went out or something along those lines, but you can guarantee that regardless, things that are going to come into play are going to be those maintenance records, right? Were proper preventative maintenance cycles in order? When's the last time the truck had been, serviced? When's the last time the trailer had been serviced, right? It's not just the truck that's in the accident, it's also the equipment that's attached to it. Maintaining the driver qualification file, right? Everything that we have from when that driver started to their entire journey with us, right? Their MVR extract, pre-employment history. Do they have patterns of maybe incidents or accidents? CSA comes into play in that. Do they have any points or anything like that sitting on them, either pre-employment or during employment with our company, that could be red flags or leading causes or possible findings and determinations that would have told us that this accident might happen at some point in time in the future. Because if they are there, those things are going to be brought up.
Absolutely.
Pre-employment drug screening and any drug screens that were performed under employment, right? Any random drug screenings that were performed under employment. And I think that kind of ties in, same thing with the DQ file, right? These are things that we want to retain and we want to have ready, and that should happen, right? All of this should be happening right after the accident. They should all be a chain reaction process for the company. We should know that these are things that we need to have ready right away. You don't want to you don't want to be scrambling because we just found out that this is going to trial and now we need to figure out where all the puzzle pieces are.
So Keith, I do have one question here. There's a lot of great information. Some of it's back office information that needs to be done, behind the desk and behind the computer screen. A lot of in the cab with the driver. I know Vertical Alliance, Infinit-I Workforce is online training a way to get this content out to your driving staff?
You bet it is. Not only is it, a good way to build these trainings and get them in front of your drivers, but we can also check to make sure that that training's been completed. And better yet, when we do go to trial, we have a training record that we can print out and say, here's the past 6 months to a year of the courses that this driver took, right? That shows more than anything, right? Versus a driver that's not taking training, or we can't pull up records of that, right? So
yes, and we will
invaluable.
offer an opportunity for a free demonstration for all our clients at the end here to sign up for a free demonstration. But it appears a lot of this is customized for a specific carrier. Something might apply to a concrete truck, might be different than a oil field truck, that might be different from an over the road truck, and it's a lot. Do you recommend customizing the content that gets delivered?
I do, right? We should create relatable content, right? You're one, if you're in a specialized industry that specific or company specific content is important, but two, relatable content is important for retention, right? Your drivers are going to retain that information better if they feel like they can relate to it rather than a broad generalization.
Now, do you and the Transportation Nerd provide those services?
I do, absolutely. I created many training videos to date. I've put together about 130 different training videos on various topics. And it's something that, we can work with a company and what resources I have available and that specific company, and put something together that's effective, that they can get in front of their drivers. And hopefully they're using Infinit-I to deliver that content.
Well, I mean, it's easy for us to agree that we lose the opportunity to gather a lot of this information immediately following an accident, and something else to have our driver prepared and trained on what to do at the scene, and how do we get that? How do we exchange that information? Is super important.
Correct.
And again, we never know how an individual will react under stress and adrenaline flow, but at least the opportunity to train them on what to do and maybe what not to do is something that certainly can turn a minor preventable accident into a catastrophic nuclear verdict.
That's correct. It's
a fine line.
It pays to do your due diligence. And that critical hour, we'll call it that critical hour after the accident, and what happens determines probably the outcome for many, many months afterwards.
Wow, and again, just kind of rephrase or to reestablish the fact that the majority of motor vehicle accidents that have commercial trucks and passenger cars, the critical reason belongs to the passenger cars. The challenge for us in the commercial truck industry is, can you prove it? What can you do to absolutely prove without anybody's second guessing it wasn't our fault? And if you wait 6 months, 2 months, 9 months down the road, the window's gone.
Correct. And I think you said it right there. Not only is the question, can you prove it, but the answer is you can prove it, right?
Can prove it. Yes.
You've got to you've got to put in the work, and you've got to make sure you're doing it right, because it does pay off.
Well, I want to open this up for some questions. I've got some chat coming in for Q&A. I want to make sure there's the transportation nerd at gmail.com. Mr. Keith Long, if you are listening to this and agree with this and say, yes, Mark, this is important stuff, but I'm a busy person and I don't, there's Keith's email right there. He can close that gap between us agreeing how important it is to gather this information at the scene and getting it into the cab of a truck. And that's a big gap.
Correct.
Well, Keith, this is a very lot of information here. My goodness, I've taken notes here: photos, dash cams, accident reconstructions, police reports, CCM downloads. You also mentioned lawyers, truck transportation lawyers. There's a lot of lawyers out there, some of which don't know the difference between a truck and a trailer. Those are not the ones you want to defend you in a lawsuit. Is that a fair statement?
That is a very fair statement. Absolutely.
And training a driver on how to react, information to gather, how to present themselves under difficult conditions. Sometimes it's night, sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's construction zones. To be able to maintain their composure and at least act as a responsible professional driver is a trainable event. And on the other side, you got to assume that a body cam from a highway patrolman or a cell phone from an individual that got run off the road filming the driver on the side of the road can turn a non-preventable into a big nasty situation.
Right. Absolutely. It pays to do the work, and you should be training on it. That's the extremely important part. Don't wait till the accident happens to hope that everything goes right.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground today. Certainly appreciate it. We've got your information up there on the screen. I encourage anyone here to reach out to Keith. We do have some content at Vertical Alliance that can certainly support what you do at the scene, but I also want to emphasize that I think customizing it for your fleet makes a lot of sense. And the other thing is, customized content is very adaptable in the learning system for Infinit-I Workforce Solutions. You can film it, you can ask the questions, you can refilm it, you can put multiple series together, get it on the assignment list, and get it out to the drivers, and that certainly cleans up that gap between us conceptually discussing the need and getting it into the cab of the truck.
Correct. And with the custom content uploader with Infinit-I, it's too easy and makes too much sense not to be doing it.
Okay. Well, Keith, I appreciate your time and effort, your expertise in this field. I hope everyone got some takeaways from this. We also want to make sure you are eligible for a free demonstration. We'll put a poll question up for that. Thank you very much, Keith. Got any parting words for our audience?
Stay safe and we'll see you next time.
It matters. What we do in that immediately following a crash matters a lot. And
It does.
and it's something that we certainly can train and prepare for.
Right. Well, and that 80% is key. If you don't have that down on a sticky note in front of you right now, then you should do it while I'm saying this, or put it on your whiteboard behind you, because that's a statistic to pay attention to.
Very good. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll be back for another session soon. Thank you very much. I'm signing off from Infinit-I Workforce Solutions. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hello, everyone. That was quite an exchange of information. I've got a couple of quick questions I'll try to address before we sign off. I wanted to remind, Colin, if you could put up the poll for anybody who wants a free demo. I will be talking while that's up. You're welcome to get your free demonstration. Just click the yes, and somebody will get a hold of you. Again, we've got content we can get out this afternoon. So on what to do at the scene, accident, the do's and don'ts. But a couple of quick questions came up, the ECM download. I can tell you that we always go to the engine, to the with Freightliner, Volvo, get an authorized dealer. If you get somebody that's not authorized, the ECM download can be contested, but somebody that's authorized and knows what they're doing, Volvo, Peterbilt, will be able to lead you to someone who is certified by them to do the download. Somebody also asked about an accident kit. Is that a good idea? My answer is yes. I don't recommend a 5-page. I recommend a 1-page checklist, which we are going to forward in the near future. There was a lot of discussion on that. The checklist that we have drafted has 6 components: the secure the scene, rendering aid, accident hotline, gathering information, photographs at the scene, calling your insurance company and getting them involved. That's forthcoming. I think we'll get that out to everyone who participated when that comes out. That is something also you can put in the resource feature of your Infinit-I Workforce user area. There's a resource. You can put that 1 page in there so that the driver's confused. You can always go back and help to bring calmness and clarity on what to do next. Another question was the enforcement. How to be approachable to an enforcement officer, and should you encourage your driver to talk to them? The answer is yes, but be approachable. I talk to enforcement guys all the time and say, this driver's over there and he's smoking cigarettes and cussing and carrying on, and he's just not approachable. So present yourself as a professional driver. That is a coachable event. The word I would use there is approachable. The no-show. Somebody brought up what do you do if the police don't show up? And my answer to that, just without getting into all the specifics for this, that, or another, you do not want to be accused of leaving the scene of an accident. If law enforcement is in fact going to show up, waiting it out is a very good idea. You do not want to get accused of leaving the scene of an accident. If they never show up, they never show up, and obviously there'll be no citations, there won't be an accident report, but you need to allow plenty of time so that there is some documentation and you're not being accused of leaving the scene of an accident. Somebody else brought up a very, very important point, which is spills, diesel spills, hazmat spills. You need to have an emergency action, a phone number to call immediately if there's a diesel spill. I've had some really bad diesel spills. It got in the creek, goes down the creek and turns into a big problem. If you've got hazmat on, you've got to have some people that are specialized in training, especially if it's a rollover. What to do on the environmental side is a very important component of that checklist. The checklist will be coming out. I think it'll be available, I'm going to say, next week. It's got 6 components. It's very informative. That's coming forward. So with all that said, we're bumping our time limit. We had a great participation today. It is Memorial Day weekend. Impairment, distracted driving is going to be peaking. Get that out to your drivers. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much to our veterans again. We'll see you next time.